Hey, Mart, welcome to the podcast. How you doing?
Doing well, thank you. How about you?
Yeah, I'm well, thanks. Not too early, I hope, for you. Obviously, afternoon for me, morning for yourself, kind of first thing there, yeah?
Yeah, definitely. But I'm awake.
Cool. Well, look, we know each other obviously now for a few months, so it is not often I jump into podcasts. I'm chatting to people I've never met before, but we know each other, and I'll probably ask you some questions that I know the answer to, because this is really about the work we are both doing, and you for somewhat longer time than me. But as way of introduction, do you want to just give us a bit of your background, who you are, what you do for the audience purpose? That'd be great.
Yeah, of course. I'm not that old, so the introduction of my life isn't that long. But um, I've I've studied economics in Utrecht, and afterwards I studied environmental economics, mainly because I've seen during my studies that we didn't include any externalities during our economic courses. So I've went into more in the environmental space, and then in the meantime, um, I met my old neighbor again, which is my co-founder now. It's Berend de Haas. He is a biologist, and he told me a bit about carbon removal. It was a bit of a niche subject during my studies, and funnily enough, I said to him, okay, biochar is something I've seen also during my studies, but it was like the niche of the niche. It was like a very little topic. And started reading about it. And during that time, I had another company, but I fell in love so much with biochar that I decided to get rid of the other company, finish my master studies, and then start reading about biochar. And I guess that's the way how to get in love with it.
Cool. And then, of course, start Dutch Carboneers. Before I ask this question, I must explain, just obviously me laughing at you saying you're not so old then at the beginning, because we're always on calls talking about our age difference. So I'm always getting called the old one on calls. But anyway, look, tell us about Dutch Carboneers, the journey into that. You're a startup in the environmental space. At least that's how I would paraphrase what you guys do. Yeah, talk us a bit about that journey, how Dutch Carboneers came about, what it is, what you do with Dutch Carboneers.
Yeah, clear. So like I told, we just started reading, and I guess when a topic becomes more well known and it becomes like hot, then there are different types of roles that you can take into the market. And we just started by doing some consult work for European biochar producers, telling them how to apply the biochar, to sell it, but also to get their plants certified. And in the end, in that way, also sell the carbon credit, so they have a whole business model instead of a segmented one where they don't get the business model done. We've done that, like, I guess, for 1 year, and we've learned everything during that year about how to produce biochar and to know everybody within the field. But pretty quick, we saw that the biggest biochar opportunity, and maybe also the biochar winner, is in the global south, mainly due to two reasons. One is that the biochar has a way bigger impact on the soils. That's what we have seen in Europe, that a lot of the buyers said to us, okay, but the significance of the yield increase isn't that high. And if you just compare it within science, it's way bigger and more significant in the global south. And maybe even more important is that we saw that they didn't use the biomass waste streams that often in comparison with the European sphere. So we thought, okay, if we want to do carbon removal in a big scale, in big volumes, then we need to help the people from the global south, because we also had a lot of people approaching us. Okay, how can we produce biochar over here? And then you will see, and we probably will discuss this later on, but then you will see that you need another technology. It's not that you can use the million plus technologies in every situation.
Cool. Yeah, I do. I want to get into the details of that. Before I do, I was interested to ask, just sticking on the kind of startup stuff. I know you guys either just have or still are going through an accelerator program. Interested to just know, how do you see the lay of the land in terms of startups in this space? And I don't mean biochar, but just more broadly in the environmental space. I mean, on that, are you seeing, there's certainly 10, 15, 20 years ago, environmental startups were far fewer, but I imagine now there's a lot of emerging businesses, technologies. Yeah. How do you see the space, the challenges, the opportunities with
Yeah,
startups?
yeah. Yeah, regarding, I guess carbon removal is even the
Yeah. Yeah.
newest topic within the environmental space. And what you see is that everything is new. And in that way, everything is an opportunity. So you see a lot of young people as well working on this topic, probably also because they find it important to work on. And secondly, they have also a chance to compete, right? You will just need to learn about your topic at least 1 or 2 years to get it in your head. And something positive about the market right now is that what we see during our accelerator program is that there are a lot of methodologies how to remove carbon are being established. So it's not like the old 7 types of carbon removal that I've learned during my studies. There were just 7, like forestation, biochar, enhanced rock weathering. But what we see is right now is that there are a broader spectrum of types of carbon removal being established. And I guess that's a good thing because we cannot depend too much on one type of carbon removal. Probably every carbon removal has its limitations. So the more we have, like the more we can add up to get at least that 10 gigatons that we need. And in comparison with our technology, I guess we are the most effective right now with biochar. So it's different. We see a lot of people working on R&D that takes several years before they can take off. But I can imagine there will be a lot of new methodologies till 2030 being published.
Yeah, definitely. There is, I mean, there is a plethora of different technologies, different versions, ways, processes in terms of carbon removal, which I want to get to in a bit in terms of, I think, probably the confusion for the buyer market and the challenge for buyers. But before I get to that, yeah, talk to us. Like us, you work with smallholder farmers, so you are focused on biochar production, which has both a social and environmental focus. So I would say with the work we're all doing, yourselves and ourselves. Talk to us a bit about that process. What is it? Why is it important? Yeah.
Yeah. Why it is important? Like there are so many reasons when it comes down to biochar, and we know a lot about biochar, and sometimes even the farmers don't know that much about biochar, so they don't know not even know how much biochar can do for them. But that takes some time to show them. But I guess biochar can, like I said, especially in the global south and tropical regions, at first just give a yield increase. I guess it's just simple as that, right? If you have a plot of no biochar being mixed with any kind of manure or compost, or a plot with biochar, yeah, you will just have like a significant yield increase. And of course, climate adaptivity will also be a very important topic along the time, but I guess that's more kind of a long-term strategy. I guess for the farmers right now, seeing a yield increase is so important for them, especially if they had some bad seasons previous years due to extreme weather events. I guess that's one of the main reasons why we do it. And of course, next to that, the carbon credit revenue will be split over the whole system. So in the end, I guess that's also one of the 2 main reasons for a farmer to join a project with biochar, is that they can gain some extra revenue, and aside they can also have a better yield, hopefully in the end.
So something I wonder, with biochar, I mean, biochar is not some new invention, right? I mean, biochar is a naturally evolving process, if you instigate that process. But I know you guys have done work in India and you ran a project down there training farmers to produce biochar. There are many benefits aside of carbon removal, as you say, yields. And I always wonder when you're in there training farmers, do any of them know about it already? Has their is it a completely new kind of process that you're introducing them to? And if not, why? Because there is so many benefits. It kind of, I think, when I talk to other people about it, they question, well, why aren't these farmers, why aren't these communities, or why haven't they embraced it already, or have they? And it's just about reteaching and stuff.
Yeah, very sporadically. Sometimes there is an old guy that knows how to produce biochar, but more kind of biocoal, because they, like in ancient times, they knew how to produce it, but then they use it as a fuel to use it for cooking. So during our project, like 99% of the people didn't know about it, and then 1% of the somewhat then older guys knew how to produce the biochar. But it was quite new for them to apply that to their soils in India. So in our case, it's very much needed to incentivize them first with also some extra revenue before they see the yield increase, for example, of their lands, or their improvement of the products itself. So hopefully, with that incentive, they will take biochar into their general practices of farming, and I guess that's a good thing. And hopefully that will last for, yeah, for at least some decennia, I
Yeah,
hope.
cool. Talk us through your process. I think it'd be interesting for audience. You know, obviously, I understand it, but I think for some people, certainly, you know, we're talking to people who are exploring the CDR market, looking at, you know, different investments, and I think sometimes we take for granted what we're doing, and it's kind of obvious, but I don't think it is. Talk us through that process in terms of a project like the one you've executed in India, what it takes to do it, and what are the kind of expected benefits and timeframes around that.
Yeah, no, definitely. So for us, what is really important is to have a good local partner, because if we go to an area, of course, I don't speak every Indian local language, and so our local partner needs to have like this communication skills, this understanding of how everything works within a farmer network group and the structure. So if we have found one that has the knowledge and the responsibility of such area, we collaborate, and then we go over to train the farmers how to produce biochar. I guess that's the most important aspect of us going to an area, is how to train the biochar, and then secondly, how to implement the data into our app, because we have also developed an app how to monitor everything. Plant Village is also an app which we are going to use in the future. And if if they everybody has learned to how to produce the biochar, the most important are the 60 supervisors per region, how to produce the biochar. Then we know at least that, like, the 60 most important people of that area, how to teach further or how to correct other farmers when they produce the biochar, because then per region we have approximately like 500 to 1,000 farmer villages. And that's limited, because otherwise the whole system becomes too big to have a bit of a control over it. They then know also how to produce the biochar, and after that it's just a case of like waiting for the for the how do you say it, the season when they harvest, the
Yeah.
harvest season. And then the biomass waste streams will come free. And in general, they normally they burn it, or they leave it for decay in our area. And instead of leaving it on the ground or burning it, they now know how to produce the biochar and how to implement all the data points into the app. And the last step is, of course, that they need to apply the biochar to their soils. And we have teach them how to mix that up with cow dung, which is in, yeah, there are not enough cows in walking around in India, so they have a lot of fertilizer to use. So we teach them how to mix the biochar with the fertilizer, and in that way, we know that the fertilizer is being like sorbed within the biochar, and in that way, it's the most efficient way of applying the biochar with the fertilizer to the soils.
And how quick do typically farmers that are using biochar in this way recognize yields? We talk about it a lot. Is it the recognition of that kind of yield increase is what within an application and within a season of growing something new, or does it take longer to kind of reap those rewards?
So it's very important to mix it up with something like manure. So if you just apply the biochar to the soil, it will first absorb all the nutrients that are already within the soil. So if you mix it up with the fertilizer, so something like manure or compost, then you can have already a yield increase in year one.
Yeah.
Nevertheless, the yield increase in year two will probably be the best, because in that way the biochar has gained its structure, enough nutrients have been sorbed in, enough water has been sorbed in, and then you have like a good base of a soil structure. But hopefully they will see it already in year one, because then they will believe in what they apply to their soils. Yeah.
Cool. That's the hope. So, getting away from maybe the ground effort and the work, obviously all of what we do really depends on some sort of investment in the kind of supply chain of this process, if you want to call it that. But putting yourself in the buyer's shoes and talking to some of the challenges, what do you see as some of the main challenges in terms of the carbon removal market today? And it's been a rocky year, and I won't go on too much, and we can talk about it. But yeah, it's been an interesting year for sure. What are some of the main challenges you see in terms of this space? And I asked that with buyers in mind and how they look at CDR and getting involved.
Yeah. So indeed, last year was a bit of a it went everywhere, because of course there were some articles regarding the whole carbon sector. What we've seen is that companies had take some time to reflect on, okay, what are offsets? What are we going to do with our potential money that we want to invest in climate action? And I guess what we've heard is that longer term carbon removal is now the way to go for at least some companies that have told us. So if you then look at the spectrum of long term carbon removal, I guess biochar is the one that's ready right now and isn't that high in cost. So a lot of companies have made their interest into biochar, but the market right now is still waiting. What is the best way forward? How to use the money that we have, like in general, public, private money, how to incentivize carbon removal. And I hope the market will come up again. But there are also several other things going on regarding how to do carbon removal. I guess the offsetting market is not the only way. What we have also seen is that insetting, which means that companies are going to look within their own backyard what they can do, might be also a good option. So think about the food and beverage industry. They have supply chains with, of course, food within it. And when there's food being produced, you have biomass waste streams. Biomass waste streams, we can use that for biochar. And if they can use that for producing biochar, then they, I guess, have a somewhat better story. So I guess something like biochar can also be matching with a specific sector. And I guess that might be the thing for the coming years, is that carbon removals will be matched with certain type of buyers. So yeah, as an example, just biochar for food and beverage, direct air capture maybe with more fossil fuels, for example. And I guess the compensation is really important, so people understand your story and don't see offsets as something like indulgence. You didn't try your best, and you just buy it off by buying cheap offsets. And I guess that mentality switch is now establishing.
Yeah, I think it's a really key point. I listened to a conversation the other day, another podcast, just talking about exactly that. And that there is a real negative view of offsets, which I think is not a bad thing, although ultimately we require kind of funding for the work we do. But I think every business should be looking at how do they reduce their footprint based on changes within the way they run their organization before they go and make investments. And to your point, this insetting space, which for me is relatively new. I know you guys are looking to work on a project, but for me, that kind of buys into that strategy. I mean, actually, do you want to talk a little bit about insetting and how that how that process works? What a kind of business that looks at insetting as a strategy around CDR, specifically with biochar.
Yeah, no, of course. if I guess if we just look at in general, what we need to do is to reduce 90% of global emissions, and around 10% we need to remove by carbon removal, and you can do quite the same within a sector. So let's say a food and beverage industry. Let's take coffee, for example. They have different kinds of emissions, right? And they can change some of their agricultural practices to reduce their emissions. Let's say chemical fertilizer usage. They can reduce that by using different practices. But even there, you will always have like some percentage of emissions that you cannot reduce anymore. And in that way, I guess a company can say, okay, then we need to look for carbon removal, and then for such an industry, it's like, yeah, for me, it's a very simple story. They can just use their biomass waste streams that they don't use right now. Like coffee husk is something that they sometimes leave for decay, or they just apply it or leave it on their soils while it's getting their soils acidic instead of the good pH of their soil. Instead of that, they can use a part of that for biochar. And that way, if they can verify every step of that chain, they can claim a carbon removal. And that way, like let's say they have reduced for 80%, and 20% of that other part is being removed by carbon removal by applying biochar within your own supply chain. And of course, there are more benefits to do biochar within your supply chain, right? It can even help the reduction part. It's not only the carbon removal part. So if you apply biochar, you can use less chemical fertilizer. And I guess chemical fertilizer is the elephant in the room. That's the most important part that we need to reduce within the food and beverage industry. But this is just an example of a food and beverage industry. But you can also apply biochar to a building. So let's say the cement industry can like dramatically reduce their footprint by applying biochar to a building or to pavement, because you need to use less cement, and you have put carbon removal within your own product. And in that way, I guess the whole story becomes somewhat more coherent. You take your own responsibility instead of just buying off credits on the market. And I guess that's real carbon removal doing by companies themselves.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, like I say, this for me, the insetting model, I haven't, we haven't really investigated it thoroughly yet, but I just sense there are so many businesses out there that can benefit from that type of model where they have a supply chain and an agricultural element to their supply chain. So, wanted to touch on the global artisan seed stink standard. Obviously, that is what we operate under, what you guys operate under, and there's so many standards out there. I saw a not a poster, but an online thing the other day talking about all the methodologies and standards, and I needed a magnifying glass to get in there and kind of see where we were. But just give us a little bit of insight. Why is it important as a standard? What does it do? To the man on the street, woman on the street that's heard nothing about it before. Talk us through a little bit about the standard and why it's important.
Yeah. No, that gets us back at the start of our conversation. Why we started these type of projects is that we got a lot of leads from the global south, but in that time we didn't know how to use the leads, how to help them, because we weren't going to invest 2 million of a big technology somewhere where we didn't have the infrastructure or the investment possibilities, etc. So at exactly almost at that same timing, CSI told us about this new standard called the Global Arts and Seasick standard, and that was a standard that allows you to use somewhat more kind of low tech. And in our opinion, that's one of the most effective carbon removal solutions nowadays, because you don't need long investment rounds. You can just invest, yeah, even $20 to make a Contiki kiln or a soil pit to up to $500, and in that way, you can just start by teaching the farmer how to produce the biochar. And for us, that was a relief, because in that way we just could start a project, understand a local structure. We could understand how to develop a project, and from there on, we might gain some trust within a region. We might improve the whole infrastructure, and in that way, we can slowly move towards mid tech and maybe in the end, high tech. But as long as a region is not ready for high tech, nobody will invest. And till that timing, some regions it will take 20 to 30 years before people think it's investment ready for a big pyrolysis technology. We didn't use for 20, 30 years the biomass waste streams in the global south, and we didn't apply biochar to their soils. So we didn't have the impact, while it was now the most important timing to do something. So I guess something that CSI really understood well is just to start also with a somewhat more simplistic model, or probably in the eyes of people, it will be more simplistic when it comes down to technology. Of course, everything behind it, it's not always that easy to develop such projects, but at least we could just get started. And what's important for the future, of course, is just to get innovation done by getting more and better data points. I guess that's really important for buyers that don't know what's happening within our project, is to get as much information and data points as possible. And next to that, I guess one of the most important topics as well is that we need to improve the technology, of course, time over time. Contiki, that's the style how we produce the biochar, is dependent on the quality of the production. So it's human dependent. And of course, we trained them well, but hopefully after 5 to 10 years, we have a technology that's less dependent on the flame to burn off the emissions. And you want to have a clean pyrolysis as possible. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's yeah. I mean, agree obviously with everything you say, and for me this low tech element is a key important part of it. Well, it's not just the low tech; it's the low cost. I mean, that's for me the key thing here. Being able to, I'm surrounded by farmers actually here, and I got a guy I know just 200 meters away who's starting to teach farmers to create biochar. But yeah, to your point of the technology itself needing to change on top of that, the layer where we're kind of monitoring and assessing this process is also a really critical part. Do you see any obvious kind of developments that will come or that are needed, as we look at making this process more robust in terms of the tracking, the verification, the visibility, all the stuff that a buyer kind of needs to feel secure in where they're putting their money?
Yeah, definitely. I guess something you have explained me yesterday, that you're going to use like temperature tools, and that way, let's say it's 600 degrees, the pyrolysis, then it's not possible to reach that temperature without burning off your methane or your COs. So those kind of data points can explain why your process is being done well. So I guess for some simple solutions will just be measurement tools, the temperature, the weight, other data points, maybe some satellite imagery, right? That you can see the biochar has been applied and there's been a yield increase. Hopefully, in the end, we can also use that to see, okay, is there also water holding capacity increase? So then you're going to measure the co-benefits of your project. So in that way, you at least have somewhat more easy tools, right? Measurement tools and maybe satellites. I guess that's the one that will come the first, and then afterwards, I hope that somewhat relatively low cost technology will be made, and it needs to be below $5,000 when you produce, let's say, 200 tons of biochar
Yeah.
per year. And and I guess that will take some time before we have that kind of technology. Until that time, I guess Contiki is the way to go, and we will just use some more measurement tools like I just
So,
explained.
so you're talking about, yeah, at some point, what, a new type of kiln being developed? Is that what you meant there? Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, indeed. Yeah, how to produce the biochar in a somewhat different way, where you're not that dependent on the human quality of the biochar production.
Yeah, right.
Um,
It, it's an interesting point. The value, the absolute kind of critical piece in what we do is enabling a smallholder farmer to do this at super low tech, low cost. But at the same time, yeah, you do wonder if someone will come out with a real kind of swish piece of equipment that is also low cost at some point, or subsidized. I don't know if that's possible, but that could create a situation where you're able to reach, far more farmers, create far more biochar, probably bring a market price down in a way that would be helpful. As we know, that's going to keep kind of coming down. But yeah, who knows? Maybe you guys can. I'm the old guy on the call. You're the young guy on the call. So
yeah,
maybe
I've
you got more time than me.
more time to to think about that. Yes, that's true. Um, no, but like I said, I hope some solution will come after a while, and it needs to be balanced by everything. Indeed, they need to operate it. They cannot afford big amount of money, so everything needs to be balanced, and that's a really tough game to play. So till that time, we just use Contiki. We will use better measurement tools, and I guess also Plant Village is working on a better model as well to use AI. So instead of like counting the bags, you will just take a picture and it will count the amount of bags, for example. Yeah, those are just like getting more data points, more and less questions from the buyers because they can just see the data on your dashboard.
Cool. Yeah, makes perfect sense. And look, as a kind of coming into a closing question, I love the work you guys are doing. Obviously, we've been kind of dealing with each other a while now. We're going to enter into a kind of formal strategic partnership, which is great. What advice would you give to other people coming into the sector, wanting to start up businesses in the removal space, maybe biochar related? You're a kind of young entrepreneur that's already kind of broken through some barriers, but what advice would you give to other people coming into this space, looking at making a difference with the work they do?
Yeah, choose one of the methodologies. It's pretty simple and I guess straightforward. Choose one of the methodologies and start getting interested in one of the methodologies first, of course, and then afterwards, I guess we just also need more project developers. What I've seen now in the market is that a lot of intermediaries are taking their positions with platforms, etc., etc. But there are more intermediaries than project developers right now. I have the feeling, right? So I hope we will get competitors in the end, right? We are friends, but competitors at the same time. And I guess we need some extra people to get us sharp and to learn from each other. And I guess that's the healthy part of our sector is that we're so open, and I guess that will accelerate everything. We tell each other, okay, this is how you improve your production. So gladly to invite people to our market or choose another methodology. I don't mind, but know that people will be welcoming. Like you can call me, you can call Matt, you can call anyone, you can call David about how to do it, and we will help you till an extent amount of time, of course. But I guess that's a really healthy way of getting us the job done because we really need to accelerate this carbon removal sector because otherwise we won't be able to do 10 gigatons per year.
Cool. Like I couldn't agree more. And I think a good segue is, people can call you, people can reach out. Do you want to leave your details? Where do people find more about
Yeah.
Dutch Carboneers? How can they, do you want to leave any kind of links? You can talk about them here, and I'll leave them in the speaker notes for anyone watching or listening. So,
Yeah, perfect. Thank you for that.
do you want to just you want to share?
Oh,
share?
I thought that
I was going to do both, but
okay, clear.
That's cool.
No, no, you can reach out indeed to our email that's on our website, and on LinkedIn, of course. My name, I hopefully is below. It's different to pronounce probably in English. Mart de Bruijn. Nobody will spell it right.
It isn't there actually, so it's not written on the screen. But I will write it in for sure. So
thank you.
What's your website? Dutch. Just give us your website address.
Yeah, DutchCarboneers.com.
Yeah, cool.
It's pretty straightforward. Yeah.
Great. Look, appreciate you. Unless there was anything else that you wanted to share that I didn't ask, I appreciate you joining and sharing what you guys are up to.
Yeah, thank you as well. And I'm glad that I've been in this podcast, and I'm glad that I've partnered up also with Biochar Live. Yeah.
Cool. Cheers, Mark. Awesome. Have a good day.
Yeah, the same.